Hello and welcome to St Michael's Hill. Thank you very much for joining me today. This video is going to be a look at the fleet that will be running on the new layout. For those of you who don't know, the layout is set in South Wales between 1994 and 1999 roughly. I'm going to be running through the fleet today, not so much on the model basis. I'll obviously discuss kind of which manufacturers the models are kind of made by and all that sort of stuff, but it's not really about which loco is kind of the best from each company or anything like that, and it's certainly not a review of those locos. A lot of the locos that you'll see and units that you'll see have either been reviewed on the channel before or certainly been kind of gone through. This is more about the locos that are going to be appearing, why, if there are going to be any changes made to the locos, which there will be a fair few changes made to the ones that I've got. I'm going to talk you through kind of the reasons behind that and the research that I've done to kind of get to that stage. Before we get going, I just want to kind of make a couple of things pretty clear. Firstly, whilst the actual location of the layout is fictitious, the area that it's built in would be South Wales on the South Wales Mainline. And as such, there's a lot of research that I've kind of done to make sure that the stock that appeared on the South Wales Mainline, predominantly around kind of Newport and East Usk, is the sort of stock that will be appearing on the layout. I do want to make it clear that there are many ways to kind of run a model railway. If you're one of those people who wants to run anything and call it rule one, and that is fine. It's not what I want to do, but I'm not going to say that if that's what you do on your railway that it's any less. I think there's a lot of snobbery both ways, from people who want to run anything towards people who are a little bit more detailed, and those of us who maybe put a bit more research can look down sometimes on people who run model railways in a different way, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not doing that. If you're only interested in kind of rule one railways, you might find this a bit annoying. I certainly will be using the word prototype, I will be using the word realistic, and I will not apologise for doing that. I just want to make it clear that there is no right or wrong way to run a model railway. This is just how I've chosen to do mine. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the locos that are on the bench to the side of me, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of locos that aren't on the bench and certainly need to be at some point. So on with the video, and I hope you enjoy. So the units and locos have all been kind of grouped together. The passenger dedicated fleet at the end here are in number order, and then the kind of more general use locos are all in number order as well. You'll see there are a few gaps, and that is because there'll be things that I need to fill in those to create kind of a pretty usual day in kind of the South Wales region in that period. So when we get to the gaps, I'll talk a little bit about what they're going to be. So there's a couple that are here, and then there's one at the end here. So I'm going to run through each of the locos and talk about my plans for each of them and how they'll be used and if they'll be renumbered or anything like that. First up is the class 08. Currently it is numbered 818. It's in BR blue, which might seem a little bit out of time for the period that I'm modelling, but actually there were a few BR blue class 8s around in the South Wales kind of area. This one may or may not be renumbered. I need to do a little bit of research on it. Basically, 818 was definitely a feature in the West Country around that time. I believe it was based mostly at Bristol Bath Road, although it did make its way over to South Wales quite a lot. I may, however, end up renumbering this shunter. If I do, it will probably end up being 08942. Again, that was in BR Blue around the same period. I do need to do a little bit more research to see if there were any differences between 818 and 942, and if those need to be modelled, how I'd go about those. But definitely was a BR Blue shunter that was spotted in the Newport area between 94 and 99, so it may end up becoming that, or it might stick at 818. I still need to do a little bit more research around that. In terms of use on the layout, this will very much be the depot shunter, so it'll basically sit on its little spur at the opening of the depot, and we'll be hauling a few locos in and around, and then also might be helping unload fuel and all that sort of stuff. So effectively very much kind of on shed shunter to kind of move things around, which is probably fairly typical of the work that these shunters have done throughout their career, but certainly at that period. The gap to the side of it is very much for a Class 09. In South Wales at the time, and probably a lot later on, Class 09s were actually running on the main line with wagons between Llanwern and East Usk, or even Alexandra Dock Junction, with kind of steel wagons or other things. It was certainly a common sight to see a Class 9 on the main line running fairly long kind of rakes of wagons, so that's something that I want to recreate on the layout. I've got my eyes on Hornby released a Class 09 in departmental grey. I think that was numbered 09015. Sorry, 012. I'm going to renumber that one to 015, which is a regular kind of worker between the kind of Newport based depots, so I'll be making use of that on the main line as well as the branch lines on the layout. Next up is a loco that if you've watched the channel for a while you'll be very aware of, and it is the EWS Class 37. This is a back model, and like I said, it's been running on the channel for a while. It's already weathered, and it's very much ready to go on the layout. This particular loco was seen quite often in the Newport area, often stabled at Godfrey Road, so very much ready for the layout as it is, so there's no changes required to this one. Certainly one of my favourite locos. The weathering is very nice, kind of very subtle, but gives it kind of a well-used look, and yeah, it's going to be finding use on the layout in various forms, both at the depot and pulling trains, whether they be coal, merry-go-round, or other workings. Certainly this will feel very much at home on the layout. Next up is another loco that you may well be familiar with if you've watched the channel. I got this one in January of this year, so it's fairly new, but certainly had the location of the layout in mind when I bought it. The 37-4s in Regional Railways livery were seen doing various things, to be honest, at the time in the Newport area. There were weekend services from Weymouth and Manchester that would have used 37s and Mark II coaches. These would have been supplemented with kind of freight work and other sorts of things. It wasn't uncommon at all to see these on engineers' trains or other things like that. So certainly a loco that will get a lot of use on the layout with both passenger and freight workings. In terms of plans for this loco, 422 was certainly a loco, like I said, that was already seen in the area, so I'm not going to take the time at this stage to renumber or name it. I will, however, look to get the weathering enhanced. It's factory weathered from Bachmann, and to be honest, it leaves a fair bit to be desired. It's one of the main criticisms of this model, so at some point this will be given a bit more of a weathering, but other than that, it's going to remain unmodified. Next up is 37701. This started life as a Bachmann model, 37705 in trainload petroleum livery. However, I've recently had this renumbered and rebranded by Laura McWilliams, and to say that I am very happy with the results is a complete understatement. She's done a stunning job of picking out the detail, everything from the fact that the logo has gone on to clean paintwork whilst the rest of the loco has still been left dirty, right through to kind of the smallest details, making sure that everything was correct as per the reference photos that I provided her. The paintwork around the logo has been faded as per the reference pictures. She's done a really nice job of picking these out and applying kind of a dirty looking loco, but it's certainly not by any means kind of filthy and unusable. This would have been used primarily for merry-go-round coal working, so around the grills there was a lot of kind of grime, but other than that it was kept in a fairly good condition. The work that she's done is stunning throughout, and I kind of bring you around the other side again, you can kind of see the work that's been done. If you want to see how this was done, Laura actually did a stream of the work, so hop over to her page and check that out if you want to see the techniques that she's used for this. I'll leave a link in the description below, but I'm very, very happy with the work that she's done. All the details have been picked out properly, and it's really, really is a stunning transformation. Of all the locos in the fleet, it probably looks the most kind of realistic and most kind of suitable for the period, so I think any future weathering I'm going to need to kind of make sure that it's up to this sort of standard. Certainly the loco would have been used, like I said, mostly on the kind of coal traffic, or occasionally it might have been used for other flows. It will certainly be pulling merry-go-round hoppers for most of its life on the new layout, so very, very pleased to have that as part of the fleet. The next loco that I have has been around on the layout for a while, but it's certainly going to be useful for the new layout. Another Class 37-7 in load haul livery, this time number 710. This is a V-Trains model, or a Vi-Trains model, however you want to say it, and again, I'm quite lucky that this is a loco that I've definitely seen in the Godfrey Road stabling point quite a few times from pictures, so certainly was around in Newport in the period that I'm going to be modelling. So there's no need to change the number of this one at all. However, it definitely needs a good weathering. The yellow on the front is very, very bright, possibly too bright, and that's certainly one of the downsides of this model, but hopefully with a good weathering it'll come together quite nicely. So that's pretty much all that needs to be done for this model. Certainly one that has been around on the layout for quite a while, so hopefully you've seen it in action, but very, very pleased that it will be used on the new layout as well. Moving away from the Class 37s now onto the Class 47 fleet. Generally, after 1994, when Intercity stopped their cross-country services with Class 47s, the Class 47s that were passing along the South Wales Mainline were either intermodal trains hauled by either rail freight distribution Class 47s or Freightliner Class 47s a little bit later, or rail express systems and mail trains. So this loco, it won't surprise you, is going to be used on my intermodal train. It is going to have a rename and renumber, however. It will be changing from 47306, the Sapper, into 47326, which was named Saltley Depot. The reason I'm doing this is just because the Sapper is a little bit of a celebrity loco, I suppose, and it still actually survives in this livery to this day down in Devon, where it has been preserved. So I just wanted to kind of have something a little bit different. So this is going away to be renamed, renumbered and weathered fairly soon, and once that gets back it will be ready for the layout. There is a chance that I might look to get another Class 47 in this livery and run a double-headed service, which is something that did happen a fair bit with intermodal trains. When towards the end of rail freight distribution and the beginning of Freightliner, the Class 47s were generally pretty rubbish in terms of their availability and reliability. So often trains were double-headed, just to make sure that they got to their end point. So that's something that I might look to recreate, but obviously it feels a little bit frivolous to kind of go after that at the moment. Certainly the fleet is fairly big and there is a lot of work that still needs to be done on the layout, but eventually that might be something that I look to do. But in the meantime, this is going to be coming back to the layout at some point in the future under a new guise as 47326. The next loco, or next two locos in the fleet, are both Class 47 778 in different liveries, which means one of them is going to have to be renumbered. I'm going to use this one as the one to renumber. I'm going to look to do it into 47 758, which again is in EWS livery. Certainly, I believe this was repainted into EWS in 1998. Certainly it was seen in Newport on mail workings that year. There are a few differences between the model and the prototype, however, so that's going to need to be modelled to keep a correct loco. The lights at the front on the number one end are often kind of glazed over type thing, whereas in reality, for this particular prototype, they were lift-up lenses, which are the same as at the number two end, which I'll just show you now. So they were just a slightly different style. So I'm just going to need to see whether they can be modelled. I'm sure they can, and once that's done, I'll be fairly happy to get it renumbered and weathered. The weathering on this will be very, very light. In 1998, this had just been repainted, so I might even go for an X-Works look just to keep things a little bit different. The next loco is the second Class 47 778 in Rail Express Systems livery, named Irresistible. This loco certainly was in this livery at the time that I'll be modelling, so I've decided to keep it. It's a Heljan model. It's the only Class 47 I have from Heljan. I do quite like them. I know that they're a little bit oversized and a little bit kind of often nicknamed kind of chubby duffs or fat duffs, but yeah, I quite like them. In all the pictures that I found, it always seemed that the number two end in this particular loco was leading, so I decided to kind of fully detail up the number two end rather than number one end. Heljan didn't include drivers in their locos, so it was fairly easy to kind of make this decision. It makes it a little bit different from the rest in the fleet. These locos obviously primarily were used for parcels traffic, but it was certainly not uncommon for them to be used on freight or passenger working. So I'll either use this on parcels or may even use it on intercity cross-country services or freight services. Most likely they would be on departmental trains, so possibly pulling a load of Dutch stock or something like that. Certainly a really nice loco and one I'm happy to have in the fleet. Incidentally, Heljan are working on a new Class 47 at the moment that looks to be released in 2021. I've seen that they're doing 47575, which is going to be not in RES livery but in parcels red. This would have been the livery that it was wearing in 1996 and I believe 97. So if I do end up getting a new Heljan Class 47, which I think is probably likely, it will probably end up being in parcels red and may even replace this one in the long term. Next up is this Class 47 in Great Western livery. Now this is one of two Lima locos that may end up in the fleet. This loco probably would never have run services during the period in South Wales. All the Mark II hauled services, as far as I can find out, were gone by then. However, there were a few occasions when it was used to take either failed HSTs or stock to the Landor depot in Swansea. So it's something that certainly could fit on the layout in terms of its scope. However, Whilst this loco has been worked on, the motor has been replaced, but with a CD motor, and it's DCC fitted. It's still not the best runner, so I think for me to use this on the new layout, there's a few things that I need to do. Firstly, I need to sort out the performance. Now, whether that is a case of adding a few more pickups, and then probably maybe even a stay alive decoder inside the loco, but also it certainly needs a lot of work when it comes to looks. Basically, the Lima model is an okay model, but certainly needs a lot of detailing. I also haven't yet done the research into whether there are the right kind of tooling variations on this model to correctly represent 47-813. So a lot of work needs to be done, but it's a loco that I would quite like to keep on the layout if possible. So I will, if it's worth it, do the work to keep it kind of operational. And it will probably be used sparingly, but it's a very nice livery, and I'd like to have a Class 47 in the Great Western livery on the layout. Finally, on to the last Class 47 in the fleet, and it's 47-834 in Intercity Swallow livery, and it's Firefly. Now, I really love these locos. Probably Class 47s might well be my favourite loco, and this is probably my favourite livery. So I'd really wanted to be able to run one of these on the layout. However, Cross Country stopped Class 47 hauled services in 1994. They were running once a day between Newcastle and Swansea. So this will be run in that sort of period, and it will also get a little bit of work on things like charters and maybe kind of other moves like that, but generally it will be attached to a Mark II rake that will be run when this is being run, or when the layout is being run in kind of its earliest period, so 1994 effectively. However, I will end up changing the identity of this loco. Not only is Firefly a loco that you see on lots of different layouts, it's also a royal locomotive, and it's why it's been picked out in such pristine condition with the white tyres and all that sort of thing, which is great, but it's not something I'm really looking to kind of model. So I've gone through the Intercity fleet in 1994, and I believe that 47-828 is a fairly good, this would be a good donor for that. So I'm going to have it renumbered, renamed, and weathered, not heavily, but certainly it will look a lot less pristine than this kind of condition that was ready for Royals. The only thing that would need to be done differently is the buffer beam would need to be painted black. It certainly wouldn't have been red at that time, and other than that, just a good kind of dirting up of the underframe bogies and roof, and it'll be good to go into service on those services from Swansea to Newcastle. The next loco in the fleet is EWS Class 56, 56059 in EWS livery. For those of you who have been watching this channel, it's another one that you would have seen many times on the layout. It's one of my favourites, and I'm very glad that there's plenty of evidence of it running in the Newport area in the late 90s, so it's certainly going to stay as it is, and very much look forward to running it on, again, probably coal traffic mostly, but certainly other traffic as well, from steel or even wood, things like that. It would run on most kind of traffic at the time, so look forward to seeing that on the new layout. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see that there's another couple of spaces here in the lineup. So just to kind of cover those off, during the period that I'm going to be modelling, Class 56s in this area were very common. So it would be great at some point to get another Class 56, either in Dutch livery with Transrail branding, the plain kind of triple grey Transrail, or potentially a kind of sector, whether it be coal or metals or something like that. Just because they were so frequent, it would be good to have more than one in the fleet. They're also a beautiful model. I'm very, very happy to have this one in my fleet, so it would be good to get another one at some point if Hornby decide to release a new one, or I can find a good second-hand one. The other gap is for a loco that I have on pre-order, which is the Dapol Class 59. These locos would have been running through Newport on the iron ore services, behind the wagons that Curascale are currently working on with the British Steel Tipler wagon. So hopefully when that arrives, I'll be doing a full kind of review of that on the channel, but very much a kind of crucial loco to have on a layout of this period in the area. So next up in the fleet is the first Class 60 and the second Transrail loco, which is 60015, named Bow Fell. This loco I've done a fair few videos on before. I have put lights in it and hardwired it for DCC. It's actually an old Lima model, so a fair bit of work has gone into getting it into this condition. Probably a little bit like my Great Western Class 47, it probably still needs a little bit more in terms of pickups, and I might look to find a stay alive decoder to go in it if I want to get it to run properly on the layout. The other thing I need to look at, both for this and the Class 47, is how they run on Code 75 track. Some of the old Lima models don't particularly like it due to the large flanges, and so I just need to check both of those. If it comes to having to kind of re-wheel both locos, there's a lot of work in that, so it might change whether these run on the new layout, but hopefully they will, and that won't be such a big job. The Class 60s at the time were on all sorts of traffic really, from petroleum right through to enterprise workings, so lots of variety that you'll see these working on. But yeah, of the three that I have, this one is the one that's probably most at risk of not making it onto the layout, just because of the work that needs to be done with it. The second Class 60 for the layout is 60026 in EWS livery. This is the latest Hornby tooling, and other than a good weathering and probably fitting a driver, it doesn't need too much, to be honest. Again, a loco that was often seen in the Newport region, so don't need to change the identity at all. And in terms of the weathering, again, it just needs to be put into an in-service sort of look, nothing too heavy, especially as the EWS would have been a fairly new paint job at the time. The Class 60 from Hornby, as a lot of people know, is a beautiful model, so I really was keen to get a second one, and this one came in the last month or so. I was able to get it at a great price second hand, and it's in really good condition, so I'm very, very happy with that. The final Class 60 and the final loco that will be used for multiple duties but primarily freight is this Class 60 60070 in a triple grey load haul livery. Again, been seen many times at Godfrey Road stabling points, so I'm going to probably leave it as it is for now. There's a fair chance that with all these locos that are kind of factory finished, that I will change them at some point, if I can find that, you know, another Class 60 in this livery was around at the time. But as long as it was around, I'm not too bothered about it being a loco that many people have got. However, it's very, very nice to have kind of something that's completely unique. So as time goes on, I might review these, but for now it will be staying in this livery with this number, and again just needs a kind of a light weathering to get it into a condition that looks good on the layout. Moving on to the HST fleet, at the moment, in terms of latest power cars from Hornby, I've got 4. They are 43103, 43194, 43190 and 43191. Obviously, a couple of them are in the Intercity Swanner livery and a couple are in the Great Western Merlin livery. There's kind of a little bit of work that needs to be done on these in terms of to get things exactly right. I'm going to renumber 43194 into 43184, which would have been a Great Western loco rather than a cross-country one. 43103 I'm going to keep as a cross-country loco for now, although at some point I might do the work to change that to a Great Western power car. It very much depends on whether I end up getting the buffer fitted ones later in the year. If I do, then I'll keep it as it is and run it with one of those to create the cross-country services that replace the Class 47 hauled services after 1994. Great Western power cars, I think I need to do some research, but I think they need a little bit of work. Firstly, the colour is not the best match for the coaching stock. You might have seen that in the video where I went to Gary at Cheeky Tech. The other thing is I'm not entirely sure. I know certainly one of them at least was a cross-country body that's been kind of modified, but I don't know if the fans are correct for that period, so I need to look into that. I know that they can be kind of modelled. That's not a massive problem if it needs to be turned into something that looks more like that. But yeah, these will kind of make up the bulk of the passenger services, certainly the high-speed passenger services on the layout. Whilst the high-speed passenger services will be run by HSTs almost exclusively, apart from the Class 47 Mark II set, there are a fair few DMUs around during this period. Class 150-2, I'm going to end up renumbering this one to Class to 150-244. Certainly it was seen around in the area, so I will probably have these running on a service from Cardiff through to England. It would be great with all the DMUs, but certainly this one as well, to be able to change the destinations. At the moment it's Leeds and York, which obviously isn't correct for the area, so I just need to have a look at how I would go about that, but it would be great to change that to Cardiff to Weymouth, or Cardiff to Taunton or something along those lines. The next DMU is a Class 153. Very nice units these, and I'm going to be definitely using it on the layout for various local services. In kind of the time period they would have been used on all sorts really. Lots of the kind of Central Wales lines, services from Cardiff to Manchester. A lot of the time they'd be used at the weekends to add kind of capacity to those. Lots of other kind of central lines and branch lines, and even out towards Swansea, so certainly something that would have been used. I'm going to renumber this one to 153, I think it's 153372. So again, it would be great to change the destinations. I think this one is Crewe to Derby, so yeah, again, not prototypical at all. The other work that needs to be done is to just modify the snowplow. This needs to be refitted to the body. It's one of the major kind of downsides of this model from Hornby, which otherwise is pretty good. So yeah, again, it will be used on various services on the layout. The final unit on the layout, and again, many of you have probably seen this in the last few weeks, is this Class 158. Beautiful model, certainly would have been running a lot of the kind of services from kind of Portsmouth and further afield through to Cardiff. I'm going to look to renumber this one as well, just to kind of get it slightly different. So it will be renumbered into Class 158864. Again, these were used and certainly it passed through Cardiff. There weren't loads that actually had regional railways insignia at that time. A lot of them had been changed already to Alpha Line, and they'd had a pretty crude kind of blue sticker just stuck over the front. If they became available as decals, I might look to change the branding and then obviously change the number as well. It would just give me something fairly unique, but obviously making sure that that looked like it was well done would be key, because it's it's a beautiful model and I wouldn't want to kind of damage that at all, but certainly I might look into doing that. It was certainly more prototypical to see those around rather than the ones that were still branded regional railways, but they certainly were around as well. So I'll certainly be looking to do one of those two things for this unit. So there you go, there's a look at the fleet and what will be running on the new layout. I don't apologise for using the word prototypical. Like I said, I really want this to be a real kind of flavour of the South Wales Mainline in the mid to late 90s. So working out what sort of stock was running is pretty important to me. And if it isn't to you, that's great. I really, like I said, there are many ways to model and all of them are equally as valid. So if you just want to grab any old stock and run it on your layout, more power to you. I really don't think that we need to worry about who is running their layout in which way, but this is just how I'm choosing to run mine. There are probably many other locos that I would love to run. I've got a class 58, a class 31, all sorts, and there is evidence that the odd class 58 did run through Newport, and I've certainly got images in my period of civil engineers class 31 stabled at Godfrey Road. But when you're trying to model something that's realistic, I suppose, by modelling the exceptions and running the exceptions all the time, you kind of take away a lot from it. It's not saying that I won't ever run those locos, because they did run, but I think by sticking to what was pretty much commonplace, and that's 37, 47, 56, 59 and 60, plus the shunters and HSTs and other passenger rolling stock, I'll hopefully have a real flavour of the type of action that was kind of seen in Newport and the rest of South Wales in the 1994 to 99 period. If there's anyone who has seen or heard anything I've said in this video that is wrong, I really would like to kind of hear from you, whether it's, certain locos aren't really the best donors for, renumbering as I've planned to, then I would like to hear from you. I'm kind of all up for conversation, and if people know more than me around this sort of topic, then that's great. I have done a fair bit of research, but at the same time, there's always going to be people who know more, and I'm willing and happy to learn from those people. So if I have said anything that doesn't seem quite right, please let me know, either by leaving a comment below or dropping me an email, and I'd be very happy to discuss it with you. Ultimately, I want to get things right. Anyway, until then, thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon on St Michael's Hill. Bye bye.